I'm flying. Lick Night toes.
Here you go. Let's react to TGS's GaMing is better than most 5-star carries. I've never watched a TGS video, by the way. This is my first TGS video. Let's see if I... one thing I'll say is he is a very handsome individual. Also, critiquing his hair a little bit. I know it's a 10-minute video. We haven't started, but this kind of hair, this kind of skin fade is not good for your skin. I would not recommend skin fades on the regular. Eventually, you know, you lose your layer of skin. You probably get some folliculitis or whatever. Probably get some pimples, some acne or whatever. You know what I mean? And not to mention, a skin fade looks fucking ugly after 2 weeks. So unless you want to go to your barber every 2 goddamn weeks, which I personally do not want to do, I would not go with skin fades. I mean, I know it makes you look like a nibba, if that's what you're trying to emulate. I mean, I know it looks clean, but like, honestly, it's gonna look good either way if there's still a thin slice of hair here. You know what I mean? And if ever you get sick or you can't go to the barber shop after 2 weeks because life is just so hectic, you know, you can always just not get a haircut every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's all I'm saying. He had a personal AMA. A lot of people want babies from him, apparently. He is also Italian descent. Yeah. He's a good-looking individual.
Guys, GaMing has the potential to be an absurdly powerful character, but this power of his comes with a lot of ifs.
Wow, look at that blur, brother. Where's my internet connection coming?
Right. First of all, let me make one thing very clear. If we compare GaMing to other 4-star characters at the same constellation level, is always very impressive. To the point that, to me, a Constellation 0 GaMing is easily comparable to Constellation 6 4-star carries, like for example Constellation 6 Fremine.
Yo! Fremine! Unforged! Clap, baby! That's what I'm talking about, brother.
Pretty much comparable to Constellation 0 GaMing numbers wise, and this again is very impressive.
Can't hear.
But when it comes to building 4-star carries, people are mostly skeptical to do that because for the most part, even at Constellation 6, they're not quite comparable to the strong 5-star carries, so there is no point from a meta perspective. When compared to Constellation 0 5-star characters, a Constellation 0 GaMing to me is mostly
like pure Italian or something?
Average to below average ones. Like, for example, Eula, the Eula range, which by all means
Alright, chat,
is
so
still
if I'm gonna make this into a video, what would be the best title for this video? Number 1, baby's first TGS video. Number 2, I want to have babies with TGS. Number 3, reacting to TGS as a slime. That's the most boring one in my opinion.
Quite surprising because this is a Constellation 0 4-star competing with Constellation 0 5-stars, so how can it not be surprising? But someone might argue, what point is there in building GaMing if it's not as good as my Hu Tao, my Line? Fair, I guess. So, how much do you need to spend to get GaMing to that level? In terms of damage increase, imagine GaMing's constellations as this nice straight line that goes up and up constantly until Constellation 5. Actually, it takes a little bump at Constellation 3, but then at Constellation 6 it goes... This is nothing really surprising because unless we're talking about something like Radiant's Constellation 6, it's just obvious for a Constellation 6 to be that good. But I just want to clarify that if you want to boast to the Hu Tao mains, to the Al-Haytham mains, to the Ayaka mains, Line mains that you have this character named GaMing, you probably will need the Constellation 6 to do so. And the issue with this is that at first it will cost a lot. Since 4-stars have no specific PT on banners, it can cost you anywhere from 7 pulls to an infinite amount of pulls, honestly. The advantage with 4-stars is that since they're technically available on any banner, you can slowly build them up to Constellation 6 without going ham on their first banner. But if you want to get a Constellation 6 GaMing right off the bat, the average realistic expense...
Alright, chat, let me tell you something. I'm disappointed right now. I haven't watched a single Genshin meta video in probably close to 1.5 years. And the first 2.5 minutes of this video is something I've heard 1,000 times in the first 2 years I've played Genshin Impact. And to think that it's still the same fucking thing. This is what like burned me out from like making meta videos. It's the exact same fucking thing, bro. The 4-star comparison to the 5-star. Is it worth getting the 4-star? Can you C6? Do you need C6? It's the same motherfucking thing. He could have just showed the charts of how good C0 C6 is. Viewer discretion is advised. But the iterative nature, the repetitive nature, that's what kills it for me. In terms of content creation, you know what I mean? It's just like you're spoon feeding kids, babies, infants of the gacha gaming industry over and over again. Bro, I'm telling you, like when you become a Genshin content creator that is purely educational guides, factual, whatever, you become a preschool teacher. You gotta be like willing and able to just repeat the exact same things, the exact same dumbass things that's probably supposed to be common sense over and over again. That's the jaded look of it right now. Slime is disappointed at TGS. Well, we'll see. It's just 2.5 minutes.
Fans will roughly be the same as getting a Constellation 2 5-star. So for this discussion, it kinda puts a Constellation 6 gaming in a competition where it's not facing Constellation 0
you see what I mean in the Chrome?
but
Where like, look at this delay, bro.
And the funny
like, what
thing
the
here
hell?
is
I
that
can't even see the
compared to that
timestamps.
level of investment, it doesn't really look that bad. Yeah, is that good, I guess. But at the same time, is clearly not overpowering the Constellation 2 5-stars. And when it comes to fairly ranking how good he is in regards to the meta, I think this is what makes the most sense. So comparing him to Constellation 2 5-stars when he is a Constellation 6. Because again, comparing him to a Constellation 0 5-star really doesn't make any sense from an expense perspective. It would be like comparing a Constellation 2 5-star to a Constellation 0 1, which is clearly ridiculous. But still, it's so nice to finally have a 4-star carry that can actually compete with the heavyweights meta-wise. So
That's interesting. So I have heard about that, about gaming being like very strong compared to like, you know, as the chart saw, C2 hyper carries. It's very interesting, and it's, you know, we can definitely see trickling down power creep. First, the 5-stars that completely just demolish other 5-stars at C0, and now a C6 4-star not only competes with C0 but also C2. I don't know what gaming does, by the way. I don't know what he does, but the fact that that is the case, honestly, I'm not that happy about it. Because at the same time, like, you still need C6. I hate that trend. I will forever continue to hate that trend. But you don't need the damage. You know what I mean? My stance on it is, if you can afford it, you can go pull for it. But the honest to goodness truth is, C0 is just going to be fine for majority of the time. Like, you can clear everything at C0. In my opinion, you shouldn't really care about C6s. Like, I only care about C6s because of one thing. So I'm fucking bored. Alright? I just want to pull, have some new playthings. But if you're not bored, there's no reason to go to any constellation. You know what I mean? Like, the only reason why I can afford to do it without spending an inane amount of money is because I already have like a lot of resources stocked up. I have a lot of pulls stacked up because I use them for nothing, and I have a lot of characters. Versatility. If you don't have that, stick with C0. You'll naturally just get it. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just that simple. No need to overcomplicate it with a 3-minute spiel.
it's all good. Before I move on, I want to let you know that I'm currently collaborating with Genshin Star. This website is honestly pretty nice for any Genshin player because it sells clothing, accessories for your home, toys, and so on.
Those are all fake, by the way. You see this Genshin Impact Primo Gem badge? It's $8.27. I saw this at a Philippine online store, and it costs $1. Genshin Star has the same badge for $8.27, which is literally 8 times the price. And you'd probably have to pay some international shipping too. So just by seeing that, I know that this is a motherfucking scam. And TGS is probably getting paid a plenty to get this. Get the fuck out of my face, sponsored spot.
Teams-wise,
Maybe inflation. Nah, it's not inflation.
not much has changed compared to the first video I made about GaMing, because luckily, contrary to pop
You order a shirt with Navia Chibi? Bro, man. I ordered, like, man, look, okay? I ordered a shirt with Klee on the back. I ordered a shirt that says Bam Bam Bakudan on the back. And I wear it to the gym. I'm probably, like, for all the weebs that see me wearing that shirt, they're probably saluting inside. But for all the other people that don't know anything, they'd be like, why is this motherfucker having a lolly at the back of his shirt? Look, man, Klee's my daughter.
popular expectations, they didn't nerf him, so his situation is mostly the same.
Genshin allows you to sell merch as long as you're not doing too much profit. But honestly, that's still a scam. Why would you pay $8 for a badge?
About him when it comes to building a team around him.
Look, that's probably going to be the Asian mentality. You know, TJS is clearly not Asian. So whenever I see something that looks fake as fuck and it's expensive as fuck, my first reaction is to be like, hell no.
Is that he really wants to amplify his hits with amplifying reactions like melt, vaporize. While this might sound kinda obvious because he's a pyro character, so of course he'd like to trigger those reactions, it actually isn't. GaMing is a quite unique character because in his kit during his rotation he only has a few hits, like he can only use his elemental skill about 4 or 5 times, his burst once, and that's basically it. Unless you play him on teams like Xianyun where you can also plunge with him without the elemental skill, but that's another thing. But like regularly, he only has around 5 or 6 hits per rotation, and all of these hits have no internal cooldown. Practically, this means that all of his damage is condensed in this 5 or 6 hits window, and if you're not triggering amplifying reactions on these hits, you're basically missing out on doubling his damage output. So basically, it's kinda like Hu Tao, in the sense that if you're not putting him on amplifying reaction teams, he's losing a lot. His main options are vape teams, since that's where he can actually be paired with somebody like Furina, so the new meta breaker, and these teams perform very well. Compared to the first video I made, the Xianyun based teams, so the ones that have Furina, Xianyun, Bennett, and GaMing are better because Xianyun got pretty significantly buffed, and I also introduced new combos in these teams. Specifically, a character like Xianyun allows you to use more plunge attacks with GaMing compared to other teams, because even though GaMing can innately use plunge attacks through the elemental skill, these hits have relatively low frequency. Since you have to wait a few seconds between each elemental skill cast for GaMing, during those windows you can simply use the plunge attacks Xianyun allows, and that's more damage for his combos. Obviously though, you need Constellation 6 Bennett to do this, because otherwise you will just be doing physical plunge attacks, because GaMing...
Alright, I'm bored, chat. I got bored. The moment he started talking about rotations, I kind of just zoned out. Let me tell you why. Number one, the character isn't fucking out. So it helps think about talking about rotations and visually actually seeing it. That's number one. Number two, rotations are inherently boring. So it ties back to number one. Like, you're talking about rotations and there's no demonstration of it. Just makes me bedge. So I just really got bored, you know? Talking about the Xiaoyun thing, yeah, that's true. It's cool. It's pretty good information. I don't know what content is actually nice. I don't even know if I were to see my own content, would I even watch it blindly without knowing, without any of my inherent biases?
You can actually amplify the damage by triggering a Pyro's Whirl, but it's a tricky setup and also mostly only works in single target situations, so even though the damage looks very nice, it shouldn't be that practical.
Very nice.
Alternatively, you can use Kazuha, who is a nice replacement to Xianyun. The combo is kinda different here because of course you're not doing those extra plunge attacks, but the damage is still pretty nice. Here there is much more of a need to actually swirl Pyro with Kazuha because the baseline damage is lower compared to the Xianyun teams, so if you can pull off that very quick setup where you use elemental skill and burst with Bennett, then you go in with Kazuha and use a quick skill, you will just swirl Hydro, and that's just much worse for the damage.
Can I be honest? The whole tech of where is that? Okay, my browser is just shit right now. Chrome is just shit. Anyway, the whole tech of using Kazuha Q into Bennett E Q and then quickly swapping back to Kazuha to E to swirl pyro is not mechanically hard. That is not a mechanically hard tactic. Like if someone were to say, if you can do it, the damage would be good. 9 times out of 10, you can do it. Okay? The only time that's going to be hard for you is if your ping is constantly spiking or you have like 200 to 300 ping or anything above 300 ping. That's the only time that tech is going to be hard to do. Okay? Like in the same vein that Hu Tao's jump cancels or whatever are mechanically demanding, they're not mechanically demanding. Once you get used to it, you already know it. They're not hard. There's nothing really mechanically hard about Genshin. Double swirling, that's not really hard. Okay? The mechanics of actually double swirling with using Sincho, with Bennett or whatever, or you with Amber and Sincho, those aren't mechanically hard. What becomes hard when you're trying to double swirl is when there are multiple enemies in AoE together. Because swirl spreads the element to those motherfuckers. Which means that if you apply Hydro to one enemy, swirl it, apply all Hydro to all those enemies, and then you apply Pyro and you miss one motherfucker that doesn't get applied by Pyro and you try to swirl for Pyro, you just end up swirling Hydro occasionally. That's when you fuck up. That's where things kind of get fucked up. It's not the mechanic
has when it comes to pyro swirling while not offering anywhere near the same benefits, so it's just worse. Options that don't include Xianyun become better if you also don't use Furina on the team, because Furina naturally favors the presence of a healer on team, so Xianyun looks better there compared to a character like Kazuha, but if you use a Hydro character like Yelan or Shincho, then the situation evens out. But honestly, these vape teams don't look that great. The reason is that you need to use the Hydro skill and burst at the start of the rotation, because otherwise there is just no practical time in the rest of the rotation windows. So if you do that with Yelan, since her burst only lasts 15 seconds, it will not last enough to guarantee vapes for GaMing for the whole rotation. Shincho is a better alternative because he has better uptime compared to a character like Yelan, so you can guarantee more vapes with GaMing, but since it doesn't offer the same buffs Yelan does, the results are still not exciting. Goes without saying that to use either of them you need to use a normal attack before each plunge with GaMing, and that's also not great for him, like for his combos. And also you're not triggering nearly as many coordinated attacks by Yelan and Shincho on this team, since the cumulative amount of normal attacks is just
low.
not that high.
Yeah.
It would be just like 8 or 9
I
per
understand it that
rotation.
much.
So their damage is just massively lower compared to Furina, and they also don't provide the same benefits in terms of buffing or vape enabling. So are you totally screwed if you don't have Furina? Not quite. The Rosaria Mel teams I talked about in the last video,
The
I think
accent,
are still
yeah.
pretty strong.
Is he really
changed,
Italian?
And they're a good replacement
Sounds like
to
it.
the Furina variants, although they're not quite as good as the Xianyun teams in general. This is a team where Kazuha definitely becomes more important than usual, because you really need his burst to absorb cryo in order to have a consistent melt rotation. Conversely, there is more emphasis on GaMing's constellations here, because he's just doing more of the team damage, so if you don't have constellations on him, it will just look bad. Alternatively, you can also go with the Monopyro teams, Chevreuse teams with GaMing. But again, if you're not triggering amplifying reactions on his aids, you're just losing a lot of potential damage. So basically,
only
it could be
3.7
said
abyss
that
clip.
aside from
Probably
the
ran
melt
out of
teams,
clips
Furina
because
is
he's
probably the
making
most
a
important
video
character
about a
for
fictional
GaMing
character
overall,
that hasn't even been
over
released yet.
Xianyun. Builds-wise, the situation is pretty interesting when it comes to the weapons specifically, because he doesn't have a signature option, like a signature 5-star. So, since he lacks his signature weapon, on him, even the best 5-star options are just comparable to the very good 4-stars rather than being standouts. These best 5-star options would be the Verdict, the Beacon of the Red Sea, red horn, so all of these 5-star weapons that have a great secondary stat, but a pretty bad passive for him overall.
Yo,
So
Rain
even if
Slasher is
options
better than
like,
Wolf's
Rain
Gravestone?
Slasher or straight up free-to-play
Jesus.
ones like Tidal Wave or Mailed Flower are pretty comparable and good compared
Serpent
to the
Spine
5-star
yet
options,
again, huh?
which in a way is great.
Bro,
because,
am I
it
the
makes
only
you
one
more
that's
free.
just like, I have a Serpent Spine at R5 and I'm like, I never use it because it's ugly as fuck and it very rarely fits the character I want to use it on. Like the only character remotely okay with it that I'm using it for is probably Ito and occasionally maybe Dea, I guess, at some point. At some point I thought it looked good on Dea, but Wolf's Gravestone looks better. And maybe Beidou, but not really. So yeah.
To play, but on the other hand, it just means that his seeding is more limited compared to 5-star characters that have a clear signature weapon. Artifacts-wise, the Mana Shusei set is the best option, but something like the Crimson Witch set is also very competitive. Gilded Dreams is also very nice for teams that have amplifying reactions, so you can also pick that.
Summary of TGS video for me. Basically, here's the number one thing. I don't really care about Gaming's power level. As long as she's almost better than Shangling, I don't really care. Or better than Shangling, I don't really care where she is. Or his. Number 2, Rain Slasher. Pretty poggies. That's a nice graphic to see. I'll try that out. That's awesome. Number 3. I didn't really learn that much. There was rotations, but like I didn't... Whatever, bro. Like, there's rotations, but I don't really care about the rotations right now because it's not like, you know, I'm wasting brain space by knowing the rotations of Gaming right now. Chat, I'm wasting brain space. That could have been better served by more pictures of Nahida's toes than Gaming's rotation. Like, yeah, I know Gaming's rotation. Where am I gonna use it for? Hu Tao? Anyway, there's your TGS video, chat.
Slime King, Twitch, Discord, Celebratory Jackie.